News! Okay, we'll start with this. What is the continued fallout of this past weekend's action in the women's featherweight division between Skye Nicolson and Sarah Mahfood for what was the vacant WBC title? Skye won it. And as a result of that, it got me thinking. It got me thinking about Karis. Karis Artingstall, Skye Nicholson's amateur rival, the woman who beat her and shattered her Olympic dreams, her Olympic goals.
Ouch.
Karis isn't as talked about right now as Skye Nicolson. She's got to build her profile up a little more. She's over there on the Sky Sports and Boxer side of things.
Karis.
More work needs doing. Karis and Skye have some similarities in terms of dimensions.
Yes.
Their physical dimensions, that they're both long and limber featherweights with good ring coverage. But in terms of their temperance and preferred proximity, they're polar opposites. Where Skye Nicolson works hard to stay on the outside of a fighter, Karis Artingstall works hard to get mid-range to inside on a fighter.
They're both southpaws, but
Where Skye is defensively minded, Karis is offensively minded. Where Skye likes to fight a safety-first kind of fight, a risk-averse fight, Karis is the opposite. Karis likes to step in and let him go. She's aggressive and she's strong, where Skye isn't really big on power. Why would she be? She spends the majority of the fight on the move, on her toes, not sitting on her punches, unlike Karis, who does.
Karis!
In my previous video, we talked about what a Skye Nicolson versus Raven Chapman fight might look like. And Raven, she's got some of the same tendencies as Karis.
She's Skye's mandatory.
But you can't forget about Karis. You cannot count out Karis Artingstall, because she's got just as high a ceiling with more of the ingredients that I like. More than Skye, anyway.
Karis!
There's gonna come a time where they meet. There's gonna come a time where they have to meet.
Yes.
Where they have to fight. How could they not? They have so much history in the amateurs. Now they're campaigning at the same weight in the pros. Irrespective of what does or doesn't happen between Skye Nicolson and Raven Chapman, you also have to bring in Karis Artingstall into the frame.
She's there.
The only caveat is that Boxer, who promotes Karis Artingstall, they've developed a nasty reputation over time for not wanting to work with Matchroom, not wanting to make fights with Matchroom fighters. And that directly affects Karis's ability to get Skye in the ring.
She can't let that get in the way.
That Boxer pulled out Richard Riakporhe out of the Jai Opetaia fight, initially at least. They pulled Fraser Clark out of what was supposed to be the Fabio Wortley fight, and they did all of this to avoid having to work with Matchroom. More recently, they pulled Caroline Dubois out of what was supposed to be the Beatrice Ferreira fight. So if you're Karis Artingstall, how do you get Skye Nicolson in the ring when Boxer doesn't want to work with Matchroom?
But they did end up making the Clark versus Wortley fight. We saw it last week.
We did, but they only made it because Matchroom wasn't involved. When they were involved in the career of Fabio Wortley, you saw what happened. When the purse bid rolled around, they pulled Fraser Clark out. So if you're Karis and you aspire to one day get Skye Nicolson in the ring, in the pro ranks, to challenge her for her WBC title, what do you do? My evaluation via social media: Karis Artingstall has the answers for Sugarfoot Skye and her long-range fighting. Karis is an aggressive southpaw, and I wouldn't park my car next to her. She may be a handful when the time comes, to which Karis herself responded, "There's no maybe about it."
Don't hurt me, I'm old!
Don't shoot the messenger, Karis. I prefer Karis's methodology, Karis's style of fighting, over
Meep, meep.
Skye Nicholson's.
Meep, meep.
An interesting contest, an interesting fight, because what Skye Nicolson does have, very generous physical dimensions for a featherweight that give her great ring coverage. She's a long and limber fighter, long legs that make for long strides to move around that ring and step out of trouble, stay out of trouble while managing the distance. She's got long arms
To keep an opponent at arm's length. She doesn't need to be all that close to you to touch you with the jab or the straight. But you know what?
What?
Karis Artingstall has great physical dimensions too. She's got great ring coverage.
Long legs for long strides when she's coming forward. Long arms to shoot the jab and land on the opponent. The straight punches from the outside coming in, and she, like Skye, doesn't need to be all that close to you to touch you with the shots, with the difference being that she steps into hers. She steps into her punches, and once she's there, she sits on them.
She's got power.
So how's Karis gonna play this? Is she gonna use the rift between Boxer and Matchroom to bide her time and get more rounds in the bank, further develop while she builds herself up to a Skye Nicolson fight? Or will she grab the bull by the horns? Don't let the politics get in the way.
Fight her.
Fight her sooner than later, because she's a champion now. She's got a belt.
Target on her back.
It's up to Karis, really. How soon or how not soon does she want to push for this Sky Nicolson fight? Because there's a reason to fight her now. She's a champion. She's a somebody.
At 126.
That's what Karis aspires to be, I imagine, a somebody in time. Men's super lightweight news. More fallout from this past weekend super lightweight IBF eliminator between Richardson Hitchins and Gustavo Lemos. In Richardson Hitchins' own words, I outpointed and outboxed that boy. For the most part, he had some success, but y'all need to know what's boxing. Hit and don't get hit, and that's what I did.
No, it isn't.
You got hit more than he did. Not only did he throw more punches than you, he landed more punches than you, and he pushed you around.
He's pulling rank.
What we often see fighters do in this situation, pull rank on the fight fans, the spectators in what is this spectator sport, saying it's
Hit and don't get hit.
It is?
Wow.
Oh my God, I've heard that before.
Another tired old trope from the Mayweather era. Floyd, who was the face of boxing in his era and was a defensive fighter. Like Richardson, Hitchins is a defensive fighter, though. Floyd was a much higher grade of defensive fighter than Richardson. All the same, that tired old trope, that's where that comes from. It's hit and don't get hit.
It was more like clinch and go for the clinch. Excessively, yesterday, veteran boxing scribe Steve Kim stated, if boxing had officials that enforced the actual rules, Hitchins would have had at least a point or 3 deducted for holding. I myself thought the same, watching the fight, as Richardson Hitchins was struggling with Gustavo Lemos' volume, and all he could do, all he resorted to, was holding.
Hold.
Excessive holding.
Hold.
Steve Kim continued, whoa! Big 8 for Hitchins. By the way, Sergio Mora loves to score for boxers who do everything but actually land punches. It's the illusion of ring generalship, and Shields was just as flat out cheerleading for Hitchins. Richardson Hitchins, the house fighter,
The pure boxer.
any and every sugarfoot fighter out there, any fighter who wants to spend the majority of a fight on their bicycle is relegated to being skillful and crafty, when all I see is a risk-averse fighter that doesn't want to engage, isn't comfortable in the pocket, and wants to spend the fight on the run.
That's skill.
Is that supposed to be skillful? Because it looks like a lack of skill to me, that you can't really handle yourself mid-range to inside, so you're limited to boxing and moving on the outside. And outside of that, all you can really do is hold. That's what Richardson Hitchins did, but in his own mind, he outboxed him.
By getting hit more than he did?
What is fucking nauseating to hear the analysts, the would-be analysts, talk up a lackluster showing, a lackluster performance, and try to pass it off as skillful.
Look at how he gets punched right in his fucking face. The skill.
Look at how he gets pushed around. Look at how the only way he can deal with the volume mid-range to inside is to tie the guy up repeatedly without having a point deducted for it.
The skills.
For what was an IBF eliminator intended to be a segue to fight for the full title against Matias, here's the kicker. Richardson Hitchins doesn't even want to fight Subriel Matias.
What?
You heard what I said. If Gustavo Lemos would have been awarded the decision, I don't have a doubt in my mind that he would have bit the bullet and he would have fought the champion. But as it stands, they gave the decision to Richardson Hitchins, who doesn't even want to fight that guy.
Who would you want next if you could line up 3 opponents in order?
I feel like after this fight, just go back to the drawing board, see who's available. I think that still maybe one more fight before going for a world title.
Oh, goddamn thing's a waste of time. You rob Gustavo Lemos of a decision in an IBF eliminator so that Richardson Hitchins doesn't fight for the title afterwards.
What the fuck?
Twitter user that goes by the name On The Record Boxing says, IBF rules state that the mandatory challenger can't have any interim fights before fighting for the title. If he has any tune-ups, he loses his mandatory status. We know that Subriel Matias himself, the champion, is en route to defend his title against Australia's own Liam Paro. And if he wins, it should be Richardson Hitchins next.
He's the mandatory. Subriel's the champion. They're both on the same side of the street, under the same promotional banner, on the same platform.
Who is it that Richardson Hitchins plans on fighting if he doesn't plan on fighting for the IBF title. What do you think, that Matchroom's just supposed to fritter away dollars for you to keep busy with no aim?
I'm not sympathetic.
If you don't think you're ready, or you're not ready for a Subriel Matias, then you know what? They should have gave the decision to Gustavo Lemos.
I think he would have fought him.
Though in a very general sense, when the right man doesn't win the fight, it disrupts the way everything is supposed to be.
Truthfully, I don't think Richardson Hitchins is ready for Subriel Matias, and I think if they fight, Subriel will eat him up.
But that's what this fight was supposed to show. That's what was supposed to happen here. You were supposed to lose.
You did lose.
You shouldn't be the mandatory.
Would like to see Matias fight Pitbull Cruz if Matias comes through Paro, which is a tough fight, you know. I think that's a brilliant unification, Mexico against Puerto Rico.
Does PBC sit down with you to make that fight happen?
I mean, you know, I think now with their lack of shows, maybe they'll be willing to do business with other people. It makes sense. You know, you got Munguia against Canelo is on he's on Prime and on DAZN. So why can't Isaac Cruz against Matias be on both platforms, you know? Let's make it happen. Let's make some money for the fighters and let's let them achieve their dreams.
Eddie Hearn is courting the idea that they should make their own addition to the age-old Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry with champions Isaac Cruz, newly crowned, and Subriel Matias. It's not a bad idea, and he needs to come up with some because Richardson Hitchins doesn't want that fight.
No.
Though in truth, I don't think Isaac wants it either.
No.
We all know what Isaac's going to do. He's going to wait out a Gervonta Davis rematch. See if he beats Frank Martin, and if he does, that's what they're going to push for. So where does that leave Subriel Matias?
Give him Regis Prograis.
That's the trend these days, isn't it? If you lose your last fight, you get a title shot.
I think he's still got one more fight left on what was his 3-fight Matchroom deal. Let him cap off the deal that way. See if Regis wants it. He wanted it before he signed the deal. Does he want it afterwards?
Stylistically, it's still a good fight. It's a chance for Regis to become a 3-time super lightweight champion. And if he doesn't want it, give it to Gustavo Lemos.
Bucket.
Hitchins doesn't want it. We all know he didn't really win the fight anyway. Gustavo did. Give the shot to Gustavo.
Bucket.
Big train versus little train. Pressure fighter versus pressure fighter in what's sure to be a fan-friendly fight. It'll be fireworks.
Bucket.
Give it to Gustavo, because I don't think Teofimo's pressed to fight Subriel Matias. After Devin takes care of Ryan, I don't think he's going to pursue Subriel right away either. Subriel's going to need something to do after the Votto fight if he wins. Give him Gustavo.
Feed me.
Feed Subriel Gustavo. Elsewhere in the men's super lightweight division, recent details have been divulged by one Bill Haney, the father of Devin Haney, who detailed how it was they got the Ryan Garcia fight over the line. He said Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia on April 20th is a 55-45 purse split in favor of Ryan. Devin's father, trainer Bill Haney, has revealed Devin agreed to take the smaller split despite being the WBC super lightweight world champion in order to make the fight happen. Once again, doing what he has to do, like he did with George Kambosos, agreeing to not 1, but 2 fights on foreign soil in Australia, because that's how confident he was he would win that fight. This is how confident he is. This is a money play for Devin.
That he can win this fight.
I think he can. There's something to be said about Ryan Garcia's shenanigans as of late, his erratic behavior on social media.
It's a psyop.
I think he's trying to psych Devin Haney out. Try to convince him that he's not actually getting ready for the fight. He's just farting around all the while behind the scenes. He is getting ready for it, and he wants to have an element of surprise, because I don't actually buy all this mental health crap.
It's all too public. It feels rehearsed, staged.
Everything you see is what Ryan wants you to see, what Ryan wants Devin to see. That's my interpretation of that. Devin Haney, who has welcomed an Isaac Cruz fight after Isaac called him out.
After he knocked out Rolly Romero.
To welcome Isaac Cruz calling him out for a WBA and WBC super lightweight world title unification fight. I like when guys call me out because it's good for fights to happen if he's really serious. That's a fight I'll explore once I'm victorious versus Ryan Garcia on April 20th. It wouldn't be no different. I would make him look mediocre like I do to these guys. It's not easy. I just make it look that way.
It's a different stylistic matchup to the one that he had in his last fight and the one that he's about to have with Ryan.
How realistic is this fight? You know what my opinion is. I think Isaac's first choice is a Gervonta Davis rematch, and I think they're going to wait that out. The only way I could see Isaac fighting Devin is if something happens and they can't fight Gervonta.
I don't know, maybe Gervonta steps on a Lego or he loses to Frank Martin. I don't know.
Because I think Gervonta's his first choice. If something happens and he can't fight Gervonta, and maybe Devin, Devin tries for Teofimo, but it doesn't work out, they can't make a deal. Then in an environment like that, because Devin is a network and promotional free agent, after the Ryan Garcia fight, he could always pop up somewhere else. For that fight with Isaac, I think he would have to go to the PBC. To my knowledge, he's never worked with them before.
I think he would have to.
The PBC that did not want to send Rolly Romero to Golden Boy Promotions for what would have been a more lucrative fight for him, they didn't want to send Rolly to DAZN. I don't think they're going to want to send Isaac to DAZN.
So for this to happen, Devin's got to go over there. He's got to go to Amazon. He's got to go to the PBC. And he has to be on his P's and Q's while he's there.
Can't trust those people. In an environment like that, the fight might be possible. I don't know how likely it is, but it's a possibility.
You see how many moving parts there are.
As far as the fight itself, it would pit the pressure fighter versus the pure boxer, and usually, if both fighters are on the same level,
it favors the pressure fighter.
Usually, that stylistic matchup favors the pressure fighter. The thing is, Isaac and Devin aren't on the same level. I'm of the opinion that Devin is several levels above an Isaac Cruz, that if Devin is, say, an A- pure boxer, Isaac is more of a C+ or a C.
A C-level pressure fighter.
He doesn't have all the added bells and whistles that you see in a Chocolatito or an Artur Betterbeef. He's a pressure fighter, he definitely is, but he's very rough around the edges and a lot more simple than some other pressure fighters. So what happens when the pure boxer competes at a higher level than that pressure fighter, he might struggle a bit, but he'll still win.
That if Devin is a B+ pure boxer, and Isaac is a C-.
Devin wins. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, he's got to get past Ryan, and I think he can, so that he then can parlay that into another pay-per-view.
Using the revenue generated, the potential success of this pay-per-view in order to sell another one.
You may be thinking to yourself that it's bad optics for Devin, a reigning champion, to take the B-side split against Ryan Garcia.
But it's marginal.
That it's bad optics because this is the Devin Haney that wants to fight Gervonta Davis, and you're taking the B-side split with Ryan.
That makes you look bad in front of Gervonta.
But he's not actually about to fight Gervonta. In his next fight, or the fight after that, perhaps the fight after that,
it can look however it looks now. By the time he fights Gervonta, if he ever does, he may have amassed considerable marquee value from fighting in these fights,
ensuring that they happen what are short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. And that's what I think Devin is doing. He's playing the long game.